How's it, everybody? In today's video, we're going to be covering how to swap over your Quickloop system off a 2015 or 2016 Cabrinha Control System to the Fireball upgrade. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and unscrew both of these set screws here so we can take apart the spinning handle using a 2mm hex key. Okay, once both the screws are out, you can go ahead and pull this apart, but it won't come all the way off because we need to detach the swivel and stopper from the bottom of the chicken loop. So you can pull a little bit of line out, slide the plastic stopper up to get it out of the way, and then undo the loop connection that's securing the swivel. Okay, so now that the landing line is pretty much free, we want to go ahead and pull it all the way out just to get it up and out of the way. So the next step is going to be to unscrew this screw here on the stainless triangle, which is at the bottom of the CAS strap. And then back on the bottom, we just want to pop the line off its anchor point here where it sits around this lip. Once the line's up and out of the way, you can slide the top piece up and remove the transition piece. Okay, so now that this is free, we're going to go ahead and pull this line up and through the tubing out the top. Okay, so just go ahead and grab hold of the top of the triangle, pull the line out. Okay, with the line now out, you can go ahead and pull the recoil system off, and the CAS trim bungees should pop right off. Okay, so now that everything's off of there, you can go ahead and pull the D-power mainline tubing out the bottom and slide the top piece of this old spinning handle off. So for all you folks riding 2016 trim light bars, we haven't forgot about you either. The process is generally the same to this point to get the chicken loop off and free up the flagging line. Once that's done, you can go ahead and pull that out through the top. From here, what you're going to need to do is undo the knot on the trim handle. It's easier to do if you pull up the trim handle past this bungee section. Okay, so once the knot's loose, go ahead and undo that and pull the trim handle completely off. And then go ahead and pull it out of the cleat or through the power bracket. And the next step is we're going to want to undo this loop-to-loop connection so we can actually pull the cleat off. So first things first is to pull the ball down, the bumper ball. Just make sure it's out of the way, and then make sure the cleat is seated as far down as possible, just to give you as much room to work with this loop-to-loop connection as possible. Don't stab yourself in the finger like I just did. Just work it loose and then push the cleat line back through. Okay, pull that guy out. Should come right undone. And now you want to just pick this line out from the inside of the cleat system here. Okay, and once it's out of there, you should be able to twist this, kind of wiggle it, and just pull it right off just like that. Okay, last thing you want to do is pull the bumper ball off. Okay, and now the D-power mainline tube should come right out the bottom. From here, the process is pretty much identical to the 2015 or 16 recoil bar as far as getting this top piece of the spinning handle off and swapping it out for the new two-piece version that you have here. So we'll now rejoin our regularly scheduled programming. All right, so with the old top of the spinning handle off, we can go ahead and reinsert this through the bottom of the bar. And we're going to go ahead and thread everything back on to rebuild the system. So the first piece that goes on the tube is the trim bungees. Make sure they're not twisted. Then the bumper. And then the recoil. For this part, it's best to separate the top of the funnel from the spring itself first. Go ahead and slide the spring on. Okay, so the funnel only goes on one way. You see how the tube is shaved down on one side? The landing line will exit out the top section, and that is also the wider section or the larger opening on the funnel. So line them up accordingly, slide it on. Slide the recoil spring up, click it into place. What we're gonna wanna do now is feed the depower main line back through the tubing. And the easiest way to do that I found is to use a piece of fishing line. I like to make sure the line is straight, not twisted. Take the end of the line where it's looped over, feed the fishing line through. So you wanna take both ends of the fishing line and feed it into the smaller opening here in the top of the funnel. Push it all the way through until they pop out from the bottom side. Grab that side, and we're gonna pull the depower main line through now. You wanna lay it on a flat surface and be sure it goes in totally straight and not twisted. Once you get most of the way there, the bottom of the line should be poking out. You wanna just grab a screwdriver or some other sharp object. You wanna just secure the line like that, just to keep it from getting sucked back in. So you pull that line out, and we'll put some tension on this, on the bottom end now, to pull this all the way down so it's nice and even. I'm gonna grab the transition piece here, and we're gonna put that back on. The transition piece orients with this Y section facing the loop, okay? So it goes over like this. So now it's time to go ahead and put on the two-piece top part of the spinning handle. It's just keyed together, so it just pops apart like that. Go ahead and pop them onto the tube. Let the two pieces key together, just like that. So for this particular section, I find it easier to go ahead and try and pull some of this loop out, and then clamp down on the tubing so it's easier to work with and get it lipped around the top here. If you need to, you can go ahead and take this piece back off if it's easier to do it this way. So what I find is easiest is to slide the top piece of the spinning handle up a little bit out of the way, pull some extra line out, fold it over and hold it with your thumb, and then just pinch off so you have a little bit of extra slack there. Okay, slide the transition funnel on, the loop goes around, slide the spinning handle on all the way down. It only goes on one way. You want to make sure that when you slide this on, the depower main line is sitting in those two grooves that are cut out, those notches, okay? Thread the line back onto the top part of the spinning handle. Make sure it sits on the lip, not below it, okay? You can unclamp the line, so you'll untwist everything, find the correct routing, you can stretch everything out, make sure it looks right. Find the screw goes back in. One final check, stretch everything out, make sure we're all good. That looks right. Okay, so we're gonna feed the flagging line back through the depower main line. Same fishing line trick, double it back, pull everything nice and snug to make sure you know the correct routing so nothing's twisted. It's gonna go into this opening here in the top of the funnel, feed it all the way through. Okay, once it pumps out the bottom, grab those pieces, pull the landing line through. Okay, next we're gonna grab our fireball unit, separate the fireball, just makes it easier to work with. What I find easier is to feed the flagging line through first, pop it right out the exit hole. And then we can go ahead and secure it by putting the swivel back on. Pop this guy through, loop around the swivel. That way it doesn't get sucked back in. Okay, one final check to make sure the depower main line is sitting flush along that lip. As you can see on mine, it's slipped out just a little bit, okay? So it won't screw on properly this way. So you wanna, again, make sure that this sits flush on this lip here, right there. Okay, now that we've triple checked this line and make sure it's seated correctly and flush along that lip, I can go ahead and thread this guy through, screw these two pieces together now. Okay, and once those two lines match up and I can see everything's even, we can go ahead and put the set screw in. This is a 2.5 mil hex key, okay? Just get it hand tight there. Doesn't have to be super tight, you don't want to strip that out. It's just to keep the handle from unspinning. Okay, once that's done, go ahead and flip the QR body up on the catch. Take the fireball, slide it in past the hinge, flick it over, drop the catch, pull the rest of the flagging line back out. Okay, ready to go. Okay, so we got the old top piece of the spinning handle off and the new two-piece version installed. So I'm gonna go ahead and just slide this back up the bar, threading it right through the centerpiece. Okay, so first is the bumper ball. Thread that back on and just slide it down and out of the way for now. Okay, so now we're just gonna put the cleat back on. You wanna orient it correctly so that the teeth are facing down and this opening only fits on one way. What I find is easier to make sure that you will guarantee that these two loops aligned from the D-power main line will feed up into this section here. Is just take a small piece of fishing line, grab both those guys, double this back through, and you have a way to feed this through. So what we're gonna do is right now is I'm gonna feed it in the correct way so that as I pull this through, it will actually lead it into the right hole. And then the way the cleat is designed to sit, it just feeds right over that piece, okay? So as you're feeding it down, pull that line out. It does need to actually get fed through these teeth, okay? So we're gonna go back in and out the top. Once it's through the top, I can then take a screwdriver or anything that'll give you a little bit of leverage. Obviously the little bit beefier screwdriver will help because it's easier to grab onto. Just like that. And then we want to make sure, of course, that these cleat lines actually sit down. Final check to make sure that the line is seated in there and that you have enough loop sticking out to reattach the loop to loop on the cleat trim line. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do this quick loop to loop. You want to go around both of those. Okay, the tail will go through them as well. Pull that all the way through. It might be a little bit snug here getting the mark cloth through, but just take your time with it and work it one at a time. So our loop to loop is on, nice and snug. So now we just want to go ahead and feed the landing line or the flagging line back through the D-power mainline tubing. And just like we did with the other one, you just want to go ahead and take a nice long piece of fishing line, fold it in half, feed it through, just like that. And now we're actually going to just feed it through until it comes out the bottom. Pull that through. Take your Fireball, disconnect this section, go ahead and feed that right through. Put the swivel on for now so it doesn't get sucked back in accidentally. So these pieces obviously screw together. Go ahead and screw that on. If you're having trouble getting it on, double check to make sure that your D-power main line here is actually sitting down on that lip. Okay, it cannot be above it, otherwise this can't screw on. Okay, and it should pretty much tighten up right where those two lines will actually meet each other. That's how you know you're in the right spot. And then there's a set screw right there. All this is doing is helping to keep it from untightening itself, okay? So you don't need to crank down on this, otherwise you will strip it out. It just needs to be pretty much finger tight. Locate the power bracket again, feed this guy through, make sure it's oriented the correct way, okay? Back down, through the actual cleat, okay? Final check again to make sure it's straight, nothing's twisted, it's exactly where it needs to be. Take the trim handle, feed the tail through, okay? Once it pops through, grab that end, pull it all the way past this bungee side, okay? That'll make just tying the knot that much easier. You wanna just do a figure 8 knot, okay? So it's around itself, and through the loop, okay? So the top of that mark cloth piece is sticking out the bottom of the knot, okay? That'll help it from coming undone, okay? Cinch it down nice and snug. Pull this guy back through until the bungee pops out the other side. And there we are, ready to go. Okay, so the final step is just to connect the Fireball. So go ahead and push up the QR body until it rests on the catch. Make sure the hinge is open. Drop the Fireball on past the hinge. Fold it over, drop the catch. You're ready to rock.